Hi there, Davey Cretin here for Cretin Classics, and this video I want to pay tribute to the former lead singer, solo artist from The Alarm, Mike Peters. Show a picture of him. There he is. Mike Peters with his acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter, fronted The Alarm. He's got the cool hair from the 80s. This photo's from 1984. He was born Michael Leslie Peters, February 25th in 1959, and passed away today, April 29th, 2025, at the age of 66. Now, he was born and he lived in the area, I hope I can pronounce this right, Rhyl in Wales, the North Wales coast. He had a 50-year career from 1975 to 2025. 50-year career. Wow. In 2019, Peters got an award, the MBE Award for his service for cancer care, and that's from the Order of the British Empire. There are 5 grades. He's the lowest, 5th grade, but still, he's a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. So MBE for Member of the British Empire, MBE. So he has some letters after his name. Famous, world-renowned guy. In 2019, or actually before 2019, he co-founded the Love, Hope, Strength Foundation, which was all about cancer care. Obviously, the word strength comes from what a cancer patient, a survivor, needs. You need strength to survive. And also it harkens back to an Alarm album, which I'll get to in a moment. After seeing the Sex Pistols in 1976, so as a 15, 16-year-old kid, he forms his first band. Of course, they're called The Toilets. So now we can look back and smile and we can laugh about that. The Toilets eventually became a band called 17, and he started working with Nigel Twist on drums and Eddie McDonald on bass. They eventually had another guitar player, and then in the early 80s, they got Dave Sharp in. And then in 1981, they became The Alarm. Now, they named themselves after a song by the old band The Toilets. Mike Peters, one of the first songs he ever wrote, was called Alarm, Alarm. But maybe it sounded too much like Duran Duran, Talk Talk, so they just made it a single name, The Alarm. And that's how The Alarm got their name. They became known as The Alarm in 1981. In 1983, June 83, they put out their first EP. And all their stuff in the 80s and early 90s came out on IRS Records. So they signed to IRS Records. They released their first EP called The Alarm. Everyone knows the song, who's a fan. The Stand came from the first EP. And they always had these upbeat, uplifting songs based around acoustic guitar, sort of like singer-songwriter, but fleshed out with bass, drums, and guitar. They released their first full-length album a year later, June 1984, Declaration came out. And they had more big hits on here. 68 Guns, great song, and Blaze of Glory, definitely a top tune by the band. In October 85, they put out the Strength EP, and that's where part of the name of his cancer foundation came from, the title of their second full-length album, with the song Strength on it. Chorus, give me love, give me hope, give me strength. And there's your foundation name right there for cancer care, right out of his own lyrics to one of his classic songs. Also another phenomenal song on the Strength album, Spirit of 76. I mean, I could go on naming hits and great deep album tracks from every album, but I don't want to make it a super long video. October 77, The Alarm released Eye of the Hurricane. Big hit, Rain in the Summertime. Amazingly melodic, commercial, catchy song. They did really well on alternative radio, college radio. They had some crossover to rock radio, but they were never a pop singles band here in America, maybe more so overseas in England, Ireland, Europe. Sure, they did better because that's where his career would be based eventually. Now, on the Eye of the Hurricane album, I don't remember if it was 87 or 88, I saw The Alarm live for the first time, the Beacon Theater in New York City. And I went with a coworker of mine, a friend named Mary Ellen, and this show was an amazing show. Excellent show. Beacon Theater is a pretty big venue in Manhattan. Rain in the summertime was all over rock radio. That's when they sort of crossed over to rock radio. Still had the college crowd. It was probably a sold out show, and it was almost a transcendent show. So uplifting, so positive, so powerful. What a great show. 1988, they released their first live, it's a mini album, let's call it a mini album, called Electric Folklore Live. Came out November of 88. So it was a stopgap till their next studio record, which came out September of 89, called Change. They had another big hit on rock radio, college radio, called Sold Me Down the River. Great catchy song. Some great woo-woos in that song. Also Love Don't Come Easy, which was a ballad, but very powerful song. Excellent tune. In November of 1990, as a stopgap, IRS Records put out a compilation called Standards that had a couple of, like a B-side of a single, an unreleased song. What was it? The Road was on there, and Unsafe Building. Two excellent songs, really good songs. And if you don't know The Alarm and their music, start off with the original IRS CD version of Standards, because that's a great place to start. It's got songs from every album and their EPs up until that point. It's like an hour long. I highly recommend that as a starting point if you're not familiar with Mike Peters and The Alarm. Then their last studio record with the original lineup came out April 91, called Raw. R-A-W, if you can't understand my accent, Raw. This had the title track, Raw, was the first single sent out to radio. And then they had a cover, oddly enough, of Rockin' in the Free World, the Neil Young song. They had a minor hit with that. I saw them for the second time, and this time it was in Manhattan. It was at the Academy of Music, was the name of the place. Most people just called it the Academy. So it was a little downsized because in America their star was on the wane, unfortunately. So they went from the Beacon Theater down to the Academy. Still a really good show. Later on that year, and you could find this on YouTube, there is a clip of it. He was playing, I think it's the Brixton Academy in England, and all of a sudden at the end of the concert, Mike Peters makes the announcement to the crowd, "This is my last show with The Alarm." And he walked off stage. And except for one time when they got together, and I think it was 2003, they never played together again. There was a show on VH1 called Bands Reunited, where they reunited like Missing Persons, A Flock of Seagulls, a lot of 80s bands. And The Alarm got together that one time with the original four members, Dave Sharp, Mike Peters, Nigel Twist, and Eddie McDonald. Eddie McDonald had really cool high hair. They all had cool hair back in the 80s. Didn't we all? At any rate, so they were always pegged. I know I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway. They were pegged as U2 Junior, or everyone said, "Oh, The Alarm, they just sound like U2." A little bit, maybe in the spirit and the power of the songs and the uplifting nature, but they were sort of for the working man. They wrote songs for like the working man, the downtrodden, and they always try to lift people up and have positive songs. It's one of the things I loved about them. Very anthemic songs. That's the word that you could use to describe The Alarm. Just very anthemic, powerful stuff, and a great live band. Even though eventually things came to a head. I mean, Dave Sharp has, I think, 3 or 4 songs where he sings lead vocals on the Raw album. And I guess, the band were at loggerheads and they'd been together 10 years, and it's hard to keep a band together. I mean, I was just a singer in a local tribute band, and it was hard keeping a lineup together. It's sort of like being married to multiple people at the same time, and not everyone gets along. Not everyone agrees on stuff, how to perform a song, what song to do, how to play. And it's tough. So eventually a lot of bands break up. Look at the Stones. I mean, they've been together, but Jagger and Richards have butted heads over the years. Look what happened after the Beatles were together for less than a decade. Then they broke up, and John wrote a song about Paul. Paul wrote a song about John. So band friction, it's, what naturally happens. Not every marriage lasts. So Mike Peters took some time off after he walked away from the Alarm in 91. Then in 94, he started a solo career. He started releasing a single in 94. His solo career was from 94 to 2009. In 1999, he formed a supergroup, and I think I have the CD somewhere. They made one album called Color Sound. It's, of course, the European and Canadian spelling of the word color, COLOUR sound, Color Sound, one word. Billy Duffy from the Cult played guitar on the record. I think there were a couple of other ex-members of the Cult playing with them at the time. I have that somewhere. I'd love to find it. In 2001, he became part of a supergroup that toured where they each played songs from their respective bands called Dead Man Walking. And you had Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols and Captain Sensible from the Damned. So they would perform, I guess, Sex Pistols songs, Damned songs, and Alarm songs. So he did that. In 2011 to 2013, I had forgotten about this because I think his name was Stuart Adamson, the lead singer of Big Country. Everyone knows In a Big Country Dream Stay With You, their big hit. Stuart Adamson had passed away and Big Country reformed. But Mike Peters of the Alarm, he reactivated the Alarm in 2000. Everything crisscrosses in his career. He's doing solo stuff. He's doing a revamped lineup of the Alarm. He's playing in these other bands occasionally. And then he joins Big Country for 2 years, from 2011 to 2013. So this guy has played full. I mean, he had no big profile. He was like a super cult artist here in the States. But I was working in the record stores and I knew about these things. One of my friends, Andy, huge Big Country fan. So he told me, hey, guy from the band you like, he's now fronting Big Country. So the music business, that's the way things go. Unfortunately, in 1995, he was diagnosed with lymphoma, which is blood cancer. Sadly, I know all about blood cancer because it's what my father suffered from. And a few years ago, he passed away from blood cancer. And now Mike Peters has passed from blood cancer. So you could say there's maybe a certain kinship I feel with him. But he beat it. He went into full remission. He beat lymphoma. Then in 2005, a decade later, he came down with chronic, I'm looking at my notes for this because these medical terms are almost beyond me, chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Eventually that went into remission. In 2006, he made a documentary called Mike Peters on the Road to Recovery, because first he beat lymphoma, then he beat leukemia. In October of 2007, fascinating story here, he took a 14-day trek with other cancer survivors and some other musicians to Mount Everest Base Camp to perform the highest concert, altitude-wise, ever performed. He was with Cy Curnin and Jamie West Oram from The Fix, whom I just saw earlier this month in April of 2025. Glenn Tilbrook of Squeeze, a band I've seen at least a dozen times over the past 40 years. Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats. 2-week trek, and they performed the highest concert ever performed. In 2022, unfortunately, Mike Peters had a relapse of leukemia. He was always honest and upfront about his health, and you got to admire that because he influenced and gave strength, no pun intended, to so many other cancer survivors, especially overseas, where his profile was much bigger than it was in America at the time. Now, I don't think I've ever heard any of the Alarm albums that don't feature the original lineup from 81 to 91. But I really should get into them. I should get into a solo career because guy had a 50-year career and he was working up until he passed. Today, which is the 29th, as they would say the European way, 29th of April, 2025, died at the age of 66 after a long battle from cancer. So rest in peace, Mike Peters. Thanks for all the music. I mean, you found a cancer care company that helped a lot of people. You were given letters, a title, member of the British Empire. So you did good. Life too short, but a life really well lived. So rest in peace, Mike Peters. Thanks for the music. Davey Cretin for Cretin Classics. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and take care. Bye bye.